Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. So we have this ongoing sort of political brouhaha going on here in Thailand, and it's just getting odder by the day, but I really am enjoying commenting on it. These things have policy outcomes, and for that reason, I think it's good to keep expats and the English language community apprised of sort of these developments and what's going on. I initially thought of making this video after reading a recent article from the Bangkok Post, but I first want to just comment real quick on why communist is in quotes in the title. Coming from France 24, France24.com, we're talking about the acting prime minister here, which I think it's important to note there I think is a difference between caretaker and acting. In the past, there was a caretaker government invoked in the aftermath of a PM being removed. Currently, the prime minister is suspended pending further adjudication whether or not she should be removed. So we have this acting prime minister, who, by the way, has effectively disregarded statements by the Council of State regarding his own powers. I have serious issues about, how he just seems to, kind of disregard when institutions say, hey, you can't do that. And meanwhile, he is not in the sort of protocol for who's supposed to be the prime minister. He's just in an acting capacity because we're in this limbo while the prime minister is currently suspended. So it's worth pointing that out. That said, the reason for the quotes is because, let me just get into it. Quoting directly, and we're talking specifically about Phumtham Wechayachai, that's the acting prime minister, quoting directly from a recent article in France 24, France24.com. Big comrade, former defense chief, takes reins as Thai PM. He fled to the jungle where communist guerrillas were plotting uprisings against the nation's military, and recently he's been questioned over his associations. Quoting further, this is from wikipedia.org. Phumtham was a member of the Communist Party of Thailand from 1977 to 1978. So I put that in quotes because I don't know where, and on top of that, this government, since August of 2023, and understand prior to that for a decade, we never saw the World Economic Forum set foot out here. The prime minister, now suspended, but at the time she wasn't, hosted some envoy from the World Economic Forum at the Purple Room here. And then the prior prime minister, Srettha Thavisin, he went over to Davos. So we've had all of this, in my opinion, undue influence from the World Economic Forum since this current government coming in, especially since the core coalition party of this government has come in. And I question, I've talked about it in other videos, the World Economic Forum has basically, it seems that their raison d'etre is totalitarianism, be that of a rightist leaning or a leftist leaning, but they look more to me like the Comintern. You can get into the whole public-private partnerships for their own sake. I've discussed that in other videos. Yes, I think they have a rightist kind of totalitarian bent as well, but to my mind, they look way more like the Comintern, and their methods are very similar to Bolshevism type, Trotskyist type of methodology, where they just do things and they take control of things and they disregard rules and institutions designed to be checks and balances to maintain the liberties of the people in the given jurisdictions in which they're in, and designed to maintain legal procedure and protocol within the jurisdictions they're in. And I've discussed that in other videos. That said, I thought of making this video after reading this recent article from the Bangkok Post, bangkokpost.com. Key figures unfazed by Axe threat. Quote, key Phua key figures say they are unconcerned about the election commission possibly seeking the dissolution of the ruling party and 6 coalition partners in the previous government over former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra allegedly having undue political influence over them. I've discussed that in another video. There was this whole lobbyist thing that's now come up, but now they're talking about a meeting that occurred some time ago. Quoting further, the main allegation of undue political influence relates to Phua and the other Srettha coalition parties. So this is going back a year or more when the Srettha coalition was in play, most of which are also in the present coalition. Meeting Thaksin at his Chang Song La residence on the day Mr. Srettha was dismissed as Prime Minister by the Constitutional Court on August 14th last year. During that meeting, coalition members and Thaksin were said to have discussed possible replacements for Mr. Sreta. Thaksin also allegedly intervened, I think that's an interesting word, intervened in the selection of a prime ministerial candidate after Mr. Sreta was removed from office. And it's important to point out that the implication thereof is he intervened in favor of his daughter, who became the prime minister and now is suspended from the prime ministership for getting on a phone call and making, I've made the videos already on it. We already know what we're talking about here, but if she didn't know what she was doing, if she didn't have the intentions to intentionally undermine Thailand, that tells me, well, probably she shouldn't be prime minister. In fact, she shouldn't be prime minister. If she did, that's a whole other problem. But that said, there's the allegation that he intervened in that in order to make that happen. That said, quoting further, and this is the point I think worth making, Deputy Prime Minister and Interior Minister Phumtham Wechayachai, currently serving as acting Prime Minister, said he was unaware of the meeting at the time as he was away on an official visit to Kazakhstan. Now, here's why I bring this up, and in the title, Curiously Convenient Absence. In a prior video we made, Jatuporn Prompan was talking about, these coincidences and all of these different fact patterns that were it's like tumblers in a lock, if you will, sort of falling together, adding up to these outcomes that were not particularly in the nation's interest. And here we are in another situation where there's a possibility that all of the coalition parties, presumably, and maybe some not even currently in the coalition, could be dissolved. And we could be looking at a situation where we have an acting prime minister who, by the way, is not currently on the list of the slated 5 individuals who were put forward to Parliament to be prime minister, but sitting as acting PM, and in a situation where all of those parties could end up dissolved. And then we're in a sort of limbo yet again, and one in which we have someone who has prior communist affiliations and is in a party that has been dealing with an outside organization who, in my opinion, has been trying to exert undue influence on Thailand. And we would be sitting in a limbo situation, a very politically sort of unprecedented situation here in Thailand, and left with the sort of all shrugging going, what are we going to do with that? The only point of this video is I'm tired of all the curious coincidences. Why don't we go back to the clear procedures set out in the parliamentary rules and things and get somebody in line that who we know is the PM. They are somebody that's on the slate of the people that were put forward some 2 years ago, and move forward from there.